My name is David Orban, and I am very glad to have all of you following the show. Before we start, I want to remind you that even if we are live, you can always watch past episodes, both on Facebook and on YouTube. And on YouTube, you can also subscribe to the channel. We also have a Discord community, and I invite you to join on davidorban.com/Discord. And finally, if you find the show valuable, as well as the other content that I produce together with my team and the knowledge that I share, you're welcome to become a supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/davidorban. Today's episode is Understanding Understanding. The age of the polymath is not over. We can successfully search for meaning in a broad variety of areas driven by passion for knowledge, curiosity, and a sense of awe. And today's guest is Richard Saul Wurman, who is an architect, a graphic designer, a creator of conferences and conversations. Richard has written, designed, and published 90 books, created the TED Conference, which he chaired from 1984 to 2003, as well as the EG Conference, TEDMED, and the WWW suite of gatherings. He has been awarded numerous honorary degrees, and he is the recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Smithsonian. So, without further ado, welcome Richard on Searching for the Question Live.
Excuse me, thank you, David. I have a couple corrections to your introduction, and that's a good place to start. I seldom use the word knowledge. I almost always use the word learning. Because learning viscerally touches me. It's automatically an interactive word when you tell your listeners that what you are trying to do is, what you're encouraging is their learning. Understanding is a good word. I use it, obviously. It's the title of some of my books. I have Understanding USA, Understanding Children, Understanding Healthcare, and then Understanding. And I like that word. It goes into my soul. It's not about our quest, which we have now for big data. It's for big understanding, because big data it's like horsepower in a car that you can't use. I have a Bentley Continental, and it says in the booklet it can go 206 miles an hour, which is absurd. I mean, first of all, I've been in a car on a racetrack going 120. I was scared shitless. I mean, I was terrified. There's no place here in Miami that you go more than 45 miles an hour, maybe 55, sometimes on a highway when it's not jammed. The 206, well, it's a number. And yet it's a boastful number. They use it as a boastful thing, as they use big data as a boastful thing when they don't have understanding. And without understanding, that is useless. So I'm interested in understanding and the usefulness of it.
And as you mentioned, it is a book that you also published. Understanding, which was one layer more, right? And this video, we will share the links in the show notes, so anybody can find the specific video, which is beautiful, where you are leafing through this very stimulating and exciting book. Tell us a little bit about the book, and then I will ask you about these layers of abstraction.
Perhaps at the end I'll do that. But one thing that I never flog books. I don't try to sell my books. This book was never sent to anybody for review. This book cannot be found in any bookstore. If you know about the book, you can find it on Amazon. They have a few copies left, but I really don't care about selling books. My last book I did, which is called Mortality, the one after this, I printed 20-some thousand. 20,000 were given away at a conference of 20,000 people. I kept 500. The gentleman who helped me on it kept 500. It was not sent for review. It was out of print the moment it came out. I'm not trying to sell books. I'm not a bookseller. I'm not a book publisher. That is not my, and I don't let people, I try not to let people, which I have the power to do, when they come to my meetings, not to flog a book or a product or anything from the stage. That's under advantage of a captive audience. So
but there is a similarity. You said the moment the book came out was already sold out, which is exactly the way it went with TED. That the moment you announced it was already gone, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would always, everybody would know at the conference that at the end of the conference, at a certain moment, the last day, I would say you can now sign up, and then it was all gone for the following year. I never advertised. I didn't do posters. It was before the internet, the early conferences, and it wasn't trying to get the most number of people. Obviously not, or would have had it in a bigger place, or charge more money, or do all that. I charged plenty. That wasn't the issue. The issue always is doing good work, and it's solving the puzzle. My life is just trying to solve a puzzle. It's not really about you, David, or your listeners. I hate to say that because then I'm disliked and I'm thought of as being not compassionate. But let me tell you one truth to begin with. I don't think you can fault me on this truth. And then it puts it in context, what I'm saying, and it doesn't make me into an evil monster. I can't possibly know what you or any of your listeners are thinking now. It's impossible. None of them can possibly understand what I'm thinking or have any idea of what I'm thinking. That's just the truth. If I don't know what you're thinking, I can't think that what I am doing is, I don't get speakers that I think the audience will like. I don't do things that I think you will like. I try to speak or do work that I think is good myself, because I'm the only one who can really judge it, because I can't trust your judgment, because I don't really know what you're thinking.
And rather than negatively, I welcome that kind of attitude, because what it tells me is that if you didn't think you would have fun in this conversation, you wouldn't have accepted joining. So you being here is a guarantee.
This is not boastful, but I turn down several of these a week because I don't like it. But I like talking to you because I enjoy the only thing I do better than you, David, the only thing I do better than you, and the only thing that I do better than any of your listeners is I more embrace my ignorance. I know how vacuously stupid I am. I really understand the vacuum that's my brain. I understand how dumb I am. And my goal is to try to put myself in the location of people smarter than I am. That you're smarter than I am. Obviously, I've always known that. You're one of the big head people. I understand so little. Now, that is nothing I'm ashamed of, because basically I'm not that smart. And the fact that I know how dumb I am has been the driving force of my interesting life. It's my ignorance that drives me to do any project. The books or the conferences are always putting me in this ooze of intelligence, this ooze of people who can see a pattern that I can't see, or allow me to see their pattern and their pattern, these two patterns, and I put them together, and I have a moment of seeing how two things put together create a third. So I have this, the big design problem is not a car, and it's not a building, and it's not a new computer, and it's not anything. The big design problem is designing your life. So that's what I've tried to do. I've accepted my limitations. I can't pole vault. I can't type. I can't use a computer hardly at all. I mean, this was all, as you know, I stumbled through this with my assistant and you. This is the first time I have ever used these things in my ears. I've never used these things. My only preparation for this was that you said, please wear a scarf. I always wear a scarf when I give a speech, so I'm wearing a scarf. It's a nice scarf. And I wore the shirt that was on a picture you had because I thought that was funny because that picture was taken about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so I found the shirt and wore it this morning. But other than that, it's always a question. There was a Nobel Prize winner by the name of Isidore Rabi, R-A-B-I. And he came over with his family to the United States in 1899. And they moved to Chicago, and he went to school in Chicago. And this was part of his speech when he later on got the Nobel Prize. He said when his friends came home from school every day, their mothers would say to them, so what did you learn at school today? What did the teachers tell you at school today? What did you learn? He said, my mother said, Izzy, what are the questions you asked? Did you ask any good questions today? That's wonderful because that's part of the word that you use in the title of this series. That attracted me.
Well,
the question, it's not the answer.
Yeah.
It's much easier to ask a good question, to give a brilliant answer than ask a good question. A good question is difficult. The SAT test, ACT test, the test that in America, maybe other parts of the world, they've rolled something different. I know this is international. I don't know what they do in Pakistan. I don't know what they do in Italy. I don't know what they do in different places to get you into a high school or to a college or to some other place. You take tests. And these tests are tests where you write a little paragraph or you answer multi-choice or ABC or give a number as a solution to a question, right? Now, those tests would really be better if what you were asked to do from a selection of by random selection from 1,000, 10,000 subjects, write down 10 good questions that you would like to know about each of those subjects. That would tell me more about you than your answer.
Yeah, and when schools struggle with the wonderful tools like Wikipedia because the teachers are still stuck on providing knowledge and they feel threatened by the availability of knowledge, I always believe that it is so liberating to be able and go one layer above, rather than sending the young kids to the library to find an article that they copy over on a piece of paper. The class can say, what is in our city that would be worthy of being covered in Wikipedia, and there is no article yet, and let's write it. How exhilarating it can be for young children to see that what they are creating is being incorporated as the common shared understanding of humanity about itself. And the schools should encourage, of course, both asking questions, uncomfortable questions, as well as that kind of common experience of discovery.
I try to stay away from the word should, must, have to, you know, all those absolute words. I think it'd be interesting if, along with making available certain information, which I'll get into in a minute, of making information clear and its modalities, because that's certainly something I'm interested in doing, is that you had the option from the very beginning, or as a thread through your whole learning experience, the structure and the nature of what a question is. The structure and the nature of what a good conversation is. A conversation basically is a series of questions. You ask a question, I respond, I ask you a question. A good conversation is questions back and forth. And not all, but many of the greatest scientific and creative discoveries has come from two people that not necessarily did the same thing or liked each other, but who asked questions of each other. Gilbert and Sullivan hated each other. They produced.
I didn't know that, did they?
Oh yes, yes, yes. They disliked each other. Well, Watson and Crick didn't like each other. The people
I'm less surprised about that.
who created who discovered through the Marvel, we always have to give credit now.
Yep.
We should, through the discovery of a pattern they saw in a photograph that some other person did. So it's the thing. I'm interested in seeing the things that I've always seen and yet never seen, and that comes from the question. I have a lot of little rules I make up because I enjoy it. I don't work for anybody. Nobody will hire me, and I never get asked to do anything. I've done about 100 books. You said 90. That's okay. It might not be 100. I just stopped counting at in the 80s and 90s, and so whatever it is, it is. I've never been asked to do a book. I don't have a publisher. I don't have an agent. I don't have a distributor. I don't have a PR person. I don't have a staff. And people do not call me. You would think, I always thought I would be asked to be on boards. I've never been asked to be on a board. That still doesn't seem logical to me. I get one little bit of logic out of it, that the perception would be that I would be too assertive of my feelings, which I'm not, by the way. If there's a better idea anywhere, I'll steal it. I mean, I just like good ideas. I have no pride of authorship. You know, to me, life is a continuing search to find shoulders to stand on. I don't care about that, but I do think this thinking of the structure of learning and the subjects and the way of organization of information. I said to you a couple of days ago, when we spoke first on the phone, that had been previously, a while ago, I got interested in how you organize information because I realized the organization of information actually creates new information. Mm-hmm. However you decide to organize it, it actually creates new. If you organize it from the biggest country to the smallest country, that's a piece of information, big to small. You're shocked at which is the smallest. If you organize it by population, that tells you a different organization. That organization alone, you do nothing. You add no information here. You've just organized existing things, and it gives you a different answer. So I've been interested in the organization of information. I've also been interested in innovation. And I realized that when you go into San Francisco, there's a big sign, we're the city of innovation. And then there's some car company that says, a few years ago, they did great innovation. They put a camera on the back of their car so you saw who you ran over or something when you backed up. Or that's not innovation. In fact, I started thinking, well, what are the ways that you can innovate? And my iPhone, which we all think, oh, it's a brilliant innovation. No, well, it's innovation by addition. It's the adding of many things that Apple did not invent, most things, virtually all, that they did, that they packaged together, put together, added a little piece of design to it, and it was innovation by addition. There's innovation that comes because of need. There's innovation that comes because it's the opposite of things. Niels Bohr, another Nobel Prize winner from Denmark, and who had violent debates but they were friends with Einstein, said he was rather arrogant, and he said when he had a profound idea, he thought that he did have profound ideas. When he had a profound idea, the opposite was also profound. So many things are discovered by the opposite of things.
And as you gained experience through the years, did you have the desire and the opportunity to analyze how you learned and whether those methods evolved themselves? Did you become better in discovering these patterns, or everything you learned in kindergarten? I don't remember who says that.
Well, I didn't say that. And the answer to your first question is yes, but I didn't finish the ways of innovation. I did A, I did N, need. A was by addition. N was need. O was the opposite. S was subtraction.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you about subtraction, because it has to do with a conference that I used to do called TED. It's not done this way now, but the way it was originated was I wanted to do a conference that I wanted to go to. Sounds very simple, but it's not a very simple sentence. Not very simple. If you have to really think of what you want to do and where you want to be, and that you don't want to add to your own boredom with life or experience, that you want to be someplace you want to be. Not so easy to think of. You'll see what I mean after this whole stuff is over. Anyway, I took away the lectern, so you couldn't put a speech down and read it. I took away rehearsing for speeches, so you had to really give a speech you hadn't given before, or talk to the audience. Now the rehearsal and the memorization and the editing and the production of the speech is so they work out, and the lighting and the makeup that's really the opposite of what I was doing. And I was trying to do the opposite of what people were doing when I did the first TED and all the others. I took away VIP seating, different costs for different seats. Even the speakers didn't have a seat saved for them. You could have a seat saved for you if you were a cripple or over 90 or my wife. I took away the ability for somebody to sell a book from the stage, or sell a movie, or sell, unless it really contributed in a fundamental way of a pattern for other people, but not to sell a book because these are the 10 different ways you should do something, or selling a charity, which got me into trouble a lot, because people who are do-gooders think they have the right to sell their do-gooding so they can raise money, and that was a troublesome thing. The hardest thing was to get people not to be just do good, use the stage, the platform, for a captive audience, asking them for money. I thought that was inappropriate. I didn't have many tracks you could go through that people were doing in conferences then, because I thought everybody should have the same experience, so they had the ability during the hour breaks to know what each other saw and to comment on it. Because the most important thing of a meeting is the space between the meeting, the music, the space between the notes, the time for discussion, the time for, it's not the speeches, it's not the presentations, it's the time between the presentations. And the person you can meet to your left and your right, so you couldn't save a seat. You met people that you didn't know, and they became people you wanted to know. And you met people standing in line to get in the auditorium. I didn't let people freely come into the auditorium and fill it up. When the time was right, 3 minutes before it was to start, and it started in 3 minutes after that, I played Aida's Triumphal March music, and people came in, but they'd been waiting in line maybe 15 minutes. And they started talking to people, because that was a randomized thing, the line. They talked to people they wouldn't have talked to or met. Everything was done. There was no separate lunches. There was no separate dinners. Somebody did a billionaire's dinner. I didn't approve of that. I wanted everybody to be as accessible as anybody else. The speakers could only come if they stayed. They couldn't just come and go. Mm-hmm. Everything was thought about. I had beautiful furniture on the stage. The house lights were always up so you could see the audience, even if it denigrated the slides a little bit. It was better to see the audience. Everything was done for the ability of people to see and talk to each other. I didn't tell the audience I was doing this. I didn't make a thing of it. I just did.
And today, there is a beautiful challenge for all of us in a period of lockdown when people cannot travel to physical conferences.
Very difficult.
To design a digital experience that is valuable in order to speakers and attendees and all the other participants to feel that their time is worth investing in it.
Well, David, this is the first one I've done since I've been 6 weeks or more in this quarantine, and it was because of the way you designed this. Just the two of us, me respecting you a great deal, not 20 people chiming in. We could almost talk at the same time, not cut each other off. It was open-ended. I didn't know what I was going to say. You didn't know what you were going to ask quite. And it approaches the design of the WWW conference, which was 50 people, two at a time, who had a non-agenda conversation with somebody. Many times they didn't know, and many times they didn't do the same thing as them. And no slides, no visuals. They couldn't blog a book. They couldn't be a caption on a screen. That's why I was pushing that away in the beginning here. It was just the purity of it was the conversation and where it went. Now, by the way, I'm still not finished my A nose. I got ANOSE, a nose, so you can remember it. This is the way of innovation, and the E is epiphany. There are some things we innovate that just come to people, like a Post-it note, like Land wanting to do instant photography. There's things that just, me wanting to do my access guide, me wanting to do TED, just something that nobody asked me to do, nobody wanted it, nobody needed it, nobody paid me for it, or any of these other people. They did it because they just had this idea and they had it so bad they could taste it. And that's the epiphany. So if you remember a nose, ANOSE, you remember that. If you remember the word latch, LATCH, those are the 5 ways of organizing information. Alphabet. Well, we'll do it by latch. Location, for L, A, alphabet, T, time, C, category, and H, hierarchy. Now, that's the way you can organize information. I thought when I started doing that chapter of my book, Information Anxiety, that there would be, I knew I had to have a chapter on the organization of information, and I thought my preconception was I could hint at it, but there was an infinite number of ways of organizing things. It turns out that now for, I guess it's been out at least 20 years, and millions of people have seen it and heard about it and read it, and people have done films on it, and even fashioned 2 books on information collections that are based on my theory, based on Richard Saul Wurman's theory of latch. That's how he organizes the book. So it holds some water. Now, if somebody thinks of a 6th or a 7th, it's okay with me too. I just thought it up. There's no science involved. And there was no testing involved. There was not a mall intercept. There was no vote. But it works. And it's very helpful to me. You asked a question, now I'm answering. I don't forget your question. Did I learn this all in kindergarten, or has it helped me? Yes, it's helped. And before I start every project, I certainly go through my own laws of information architecture, which is a term I invented. And I go through these laws of information architecture, of the organization of information, how you show the change of magnitude visually, various cartographic inventions that I've come up with, because I work a lot in cartography, as you know, with Esri, and the ideas of innovation is what I'm doing with innovation, and which ones become more attractive to me and my personality and seem to work better than others. I don't sit around thinking I'm going to come up with a new idea for the epiphany thing. You either do or you don't. But I certainly start off everything I'm doing trying to get rid of that preconception and thinking of the opposite. I use that a lot. So when I think of what I want to do next, I really try to milk the idea of the what is a valid and profound opposite to my preconception of that thing I don't understand. And so I use that a lot. Now other things work too. I subtract things, etc. I mean, but it's obvious. I do a book. I did the big fat book that you sort of had up there called Understanding. But the next book I do is on death. It's called Mortality, Mapping Mortality. They don't seem to connect. Well, to me, everything's the same. Everything is trying to find patterns. And that's what you do. Ultimately, that's why you're smart. Ultimately, that's what you talk about. Ultimately, your life is about finding patterns.
The curiosity that drives us, the desire to learn, to discover patterns is a profoundly human feature, a human tract. And many of us wonder if we will be able to imbue these goals, I would even say these yearnings, in artificial intelligences. Do you believe that is something that we should aim to achieve?
Well, that's a good question. I thought you were going to go someplace else with that question. And I was going to give you an unpopular answer. You know, does everybody have these curiosities? Can we teach, or can we help people learn how stupid they are and embrace it? Can we have people understand the difference between a board of education and a board of learning? Does the next president have on his board a secretary of understanding? Will these things happen, right? And I was going to give you some popular and unpopular ways of answering that, but you didn't answer me that question. You went and leaped to artificial intelligence. My goodness. It's like, I think it's when they came up with iron, they didn't immediately have a conversation about stainless steel or chrome and chrome plating of the iron. They just didn't. It took a while. And so we're at that stage now of the artificial intelligence. If we parse through the things of innovation that I said, I think there are certain elements of any idea you could figure if you could somehow have it break down the pixels of that idea. What I'm saying is can't be done, and it's as best I can describe what I have in mind, but it's a dream. It's not reality. I can't. Somebody asked me, "What the hell do you mean by that?" I can't tell them. But if you could break down the pixels of an idea and then flip them to the opposite with artificial intelligence and a billion different alternatives, yes, if you could look at that opposite thing, if you could look at what makes up the pattern of some existing thing and what is the elements of them, what is the essence of them. And like I was talking about in the WWW conference, which was better than the TED conference, I tried to find the essence. I told you all the things I subtracted when I did the TED conference. But then, years later, I thought there's a better way of doing this. I could take away images on the screen. I could take away any presentation where they face the audience, and I could approach the joy of a conversation between two extraordinary people, finding, with no agenda, finding their way through the maze of solving a puzzle that they weren't given, of some mystical journey. And so that, in a sense, was how I would instruct some artificial intelligence machine of what you can further take away to find the essence of things and then build back up again. So why don't I? Why? I'm going to ask myself a question and answer it. Then you ask me what you're going to answer. Well, it was so good, Mr. Wurman. Why don't you keep on doing it? Why don't you do it? Can you make it a little bit better? Yes, I can make it a little bit better, but it was good enough, and I don't want to do something that I've already done good enough. I don't want to do it anymore. If I've done something, why do it again?
Yeah, and these days people would jump and term it ADD, but it is not. First of all, you can have a very curious attention that you have the ability to orient wherever you want. And second, it is abusive to label it as if it were something negative. The knowledge that you definitely could iterate, and through iteration it could improve, but since you know it, then doing it is not necessarily anything that gives you something additional. Rather, attempting something unknown is much more enjoyable and much more valuable.
You were there, right? You were there.
Oh yeah, I was there. It was mind-blowing. It was absolutely fabulous.
Okay,
I loved it.
You have to say nice things because you're interviewing me and it's your audience. But truly, I can ask you a question because once I do something, I do not have pride of authorship.
All right.
Ask you. It was the best conference I ever went to. It was just really good. Was it perfect? No. Was there high spots and lower spots? Yes. That didn't make it not wonderful. The mistakes sometimes make it better.
So many things, some things that you already mentioned, others that you did not. For example, there was no stage that was distinct from where the audience were sitting. So the speakers were also geometrically or topologically united with the people.
Topologically, but they never turned to face the audience.
Yeah.
They were part of the audience in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wonderful. Do you like to be wrong? And if yes, what are some outrageous things that you would like to be wrong about? Let me give you an example. I like changing my mind, right? Sometimes I get irritated when I'm wrong, but about small things. When the thing is big enough, it would be amazing. For example, I do not believe in psychic phenomena, telekinesis and telepathy and whatever those things are. But would I want to be wrong about them? It would be incredible to live in a world where they exist. So that is just one example. Is there anything that comes into your mind that you are convinced it is one way, but if it were the other way, you would be very pleasantly ready to change your mind?
David, you know you answered your own question.
Well, I just gave an example.
Why would I say anything different than what you just said?
All right. Okay.
It wouldn't make any sense to say anything different, right? I mean, I am in awe of David Blaine's magic. I know David quite well. I don't know if you've seen his spots on television, but I've gone to shows of David, and I have had dinner with David. I've had lunch with David. I've been with him, and I see his magic close up like this, and I cannot understand it at all. So I don't understand. There's something that's going on that there's no possible way. And I don't want to know because it's so artful. Yeah. And if Yo-Yo could explain his aura and explain in some way that I could understand the pain and the joy of what it meant to practice so much from when he was 4 years old, and the difficulty and the joy of his life. I almost want to not know that and just be part of his bubble.
Yeah, he's really amazing, and
mystical thing. You saw him at that conference.
Yep.
I mean, and people came in the auditorium talking, and of course I was playing music. I was playing Mozart's. Something funny came up here.
Yeah, I'm just sharing David Blaine's website.
Oh, okay. Well, there's also a chapter in my book on David Blaine, which he talks about the throwing up of frogs, which I've seen him do, where he can throw up, has frogs in his stomach, and he can throw up frogs. Oh, he taught me when I was 75 years old in 20 minutes in front of at one of the TEDMED conferences. That's another conference, as you know, I did.
Yeah.
That in front of an audience of, I don't know, 600 people, whatever it was. And I was 75, and you know I'm not athletic or a runner or any of those things, or a swimmer. I can't do anything when it comes down to it. He taught me 3 exercises of exhaling CO2 in 3 different ways, sequentially. I did them rigorously. Took 20 minutes, 6-7 minutes for each exercise. Then he says, hold your breath now and put up, I will signal you every 5 minutes and put up 1 finger so I know you're alive or you're not passed out. And I held my breath for 4 minutes and 17 seconds.
Wow.
I couldn't do it now. I couldn't do it the next day. You can't do it.
No.
But I saw that you could learn a technique. A year or so later, I said, "Can you make me go up to 5?" He said, "Yes, but it wouldn't be healthy."
Apologies. Somebody's spamming with a call. Go ahead.
That's okay. It sounds pretty. He said, "I could teach you, but it's not healthy for you." He said, "I was surprised you did 4 minutes and 17 seconds. I didn't think you would do that, but you're depriving your brain of oxygen. It's really not good." He says, "I work on it much harder." And of course, he does it for 19 minutes. But there's things that you can't believe that become believable. There's athletic things where people stretch their body, which is such a limited resource. I mean, we all want to run like a cheetah. We can't, so we invent an automobile. We all want to fly like a bird, so we have airplanes. We all want to do something else that extends our sensory thing in some way. But then we do things like we have, as I said, cars that go faster than we can drive. We spend a lot of money on various sound devices that are better than our ears. We put so many pixels now in our television sets that we see warts and whiteheads and other things on people's faces that we don't want to see because we have this desire to look at them better, So we want to extend all our senses. We want to make it better, more. It's progress, why, how to make it better. And I've been thinking in the last 2 weeks in one of the ideas I've been thinking about, and I can't express it yet, that it makes sense anyway. I've tried a couple of phone calls to express, and it comes out stupid. And the meaning of progress, of the driving force that we have of progress. You're talking about artificial intelligence. That's progress. That's sort of a next step, next logical step. Is there points where you don't do the next logical step? That progress is not, does not improve the quality of ideas, life, or creativity. That it has a deadening effect, or is that really a Luddite conversation? Am I really being stupid? And so I'm thinking about just a simple word, progress. It's a dumb word, and we all buy into it. I buy into it. But is there something that?
Well, there are traps that may lay ahead of us, and we must be smarter than we today are in order to avoid them. And as a matter of fact, 10,000 years ago, we did fall into a trap like that because when we invented agriculture, it looked like a good idea, but based very simply on the height of people before agriculture, it looks like there was better nutrition and a higher quality of life. And it took us literally 10,000 years to come out at the other end and conclude it was worth it, because agriculture built cities and cities built a higher density of ideas, and that brought us where we are now. And lifespan of any human individual doubled, but it just happened over the course of the last 100 or 200 years. For 10,000 years, it looked like a really dumb idea. Whoever sold us agriculture and progress short, it wasn't good. So
Well,
there will be others like that.
I'm going to ask you a question I just thought of, never thought of it before. It only comes from this kind of conversation. Did we ruin the game of chess with the computer?
So Kasparov said after being defeated that it was almost like cheating, because the programmers were also twiddling with the parameters of the deep blue machine. But after a while, he realized, and it became a term in the chess parlance, that minotaurs are better than either machine or human alone. And for some amount of time, there were tournaments where there would be a human chess master playing together with the machine against a couple similarly composed. And when Deep Mind, a Google division, beat Lee Sedol 3 years ago, the world champion of Go, which is a much more complex game than chess combinatorially, what was amazing is that the machine made a move 37 in game 3 of the tournament.
Now, you know wait, excuse me, you know the mystique behind the number 37.
No, I don't.
When we get off this call, you'll do a deep.
Oh, that's 34. That's 30? 34. You are thinking of 34. The rule 34. And this show is not politically correct. It is not for kids. So if you want to talk about dirty things, you're welcome. That's what Rule 34 is.
Well, look at 37 and look at 17.
Okay, we will do all of that. So the machine made a move that seemed completely illogical, but after many steps further in the great game, everybody understood that was the moment the machine won. And the commentators were saying, we are playing this game thousands of years, and this machine is now making us discover incredible universes of creativity we didn't even realize were laying there ahead of us. So it looks like, in very small ways that are still circumscribed in particular areas of human adventure, machines not only become partners, but machines open areas of creativity that alone we couldn't. And for me, that is exhilarating.
My question seemed loaded. I've never asked it before, and it seemed loaded against the machine. But it wasn't loaded. It's a genuine question, because that's why I was saying it's just part of my venture into progress. Is it a certain time? Is it progress? I've just started. You don't know parts of my life. I know that. And part of my life is painting. And I paint watercolors a lot. And I just about 8 or 9 months ago, I did the first piece of sculpture I ever did. And it turned out well, fairly large. And I had that cast in bronze. And now I have 7 several at the caster, they're being scanned and they'll be casted. It's quite a complicated thing. I couldn't do it myself. To cast something in bronze with the lost wax process takes people in suits, and it's a very complicated technological thing to cast something in bronze. And we look at these bronze castings and we think, oh, well, so-and-so Bernini did this and somebody else did this, and they're these beautiful things. And we only think of the human quality, not the fact that tremendous technology went into making those things. They can't just be made. A person can't make it without the help of technology. And you take the same argument back 3 steps, and you go to that wonderful church just outside the walls in Rome, where the big statue, oversized statue of Moses is, and you realize that Michelangelo could only make Moses because of a technology, because of a hammer and a chisel, which is he couldn't do it with his hands, right? Now that hammer and chisel helped them cut the big block of stone, and he said he wanted to let Moses out. Moses was in that stone. But he could have also turned around and taken that hammer and killed his assistant.
I didn't know that.
He could.
Well, you didn't say he did. He could, yes.
Could have turned around and killed his assistant. So it's a way of absolute judgment, black and white, right, wrong, yes, no, of technology being the only way that you can create many things, and technology also being used to destroy things. The same technology. I took something so simple as a hammer, but you can see it's the same thing, doing it one way or the other.
Yes.
And so this idea of chess and progress and the hammer interests me.
Our assumption has been implicitly for many or for most that the balance is not equal, and on average, technology is a positive force. And as you say, there is no guarantee that that kind of assumption holds true forever. You mentioned mortality, and we all think about it in many ways. And one way that I am thinking about it that connects the issue of progress and the benefit of progress to mortality is that hundreds of years ago, progress existed, but it was slow enough to be imperceptible within the lifespan of an individual. Today, it is fast enough that all of us are exposed to it, some of us to the point where we have a hard time adapting to the speed of change. An example is the truck driver. The average age of a truck driver in the US is 54. He's been driving for 30 years, did nothing else in his life, and self-driving trucks are coming. So from the top of our creativity and experimentation and yearning and learning and curiosity, somewhat condescendingly, we tell the truck driver, well, don't worry, just become a web designer. There are so many jobs, an uncounted number of jobs you can do. However, both for him as well as for us, there are limits to our adaptability. And recognizing those limits and then understanding if we can push through is, I think, very strongly correlated with our will to live. And when we understand that we cannot push through again unless we accept becoming something different from ourselves, that is when we are ready to die.
I think I get you, and in a more, even a bigger, early in the conversation about the truck driver, I thought you were going to go down a different path. And that path is the path I was going to, because I think the whole idea of trucks is silly.
Okay.
I don't get trucks. Why Well, I mean, why? Well, yeah, sure, make them so they drive themselves. They're still driving themselves. They're still a fucking truck. I mean, it's still a truck. It's a truck. The same way we talked a couple days ago about the chariot wheels being 2 horses wide and the car wagon, the wheels on a train are 2 horses wide and our car wheels are 2 horses wide. And we just said, yeah, well, of course, that's the way you do it. But I don't understand why you do it. What is a Tesla? It's a better car. What's a car? It's just it's just a lousy way of getting from one place to another. Whether somebody self-drives it or you drive it, it's just, yeah. I would really go backwards and take, you brought this up earlier, this moment, this pause, this strange moment. I mean, people are talking about how the new normal and what is going to change. Will there ever be conferences again? Will we ever do certain other things? Is it time to change certain things? I must say, the idea of walking on a plane and commandeering the plane because I have a gun or a nail file and being searched becomes really a joke now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very funny thing that we totally fucked up our airplane system ultimately because somebody jumped out of the back of a plane with a bag of money years ago, and we think he died in the woods or something. And then somebody else hijacked the plane for political reasons, and then it changed our whole way of traveling in a way that we probably shouldn't, might not be the best way of traveling. Nobody questioned the way we're traveling. Nobody checked how you boarded a plane or got off the plane. If there's anything stupid, it's getting off of a plane, standing in line in an aisle and getting your bags down from the. It's primitive. Are you kidding? They fall, they hit old people. They're up above you. They're not down below. The bags are stupid. Everybody hates baggage, and they try to get more on because they charge you for checking it. Everything is wrong about the whole system, and nobody questions it. It's not comfortable, and it gets less. They make it purposely less comfortable, of course, if you pay less. I'm trying to look at things in a more fundamental way when I talk about progress and what we want. Everything takes place someplace, which means the organization of a newspaper should be all the headlines with lines to various few maps on the front cover to see where they take place and then what page they are in the newspaper, because that's all you're interested in. A basketball takes place someplace. A political event takes place someplace. Everything takes place someplace. Let's find a place and use that as a way of finding it, because that's what you're looking for when you go to the newspaper. Duh, nobody's ever done that. No, we're going to watch newspapers die. We're going to watch. I hate the idea of carrying an iPhone through a city with the maps of finding things. It was much better to have a guidebook. A guidebook is a more pleasant way of having it. But we thought guidebooks aren't technology. Well, you try to produce or print something, it's technology. It's a different technology. And it has a lot of built-in comfort of knowing when you're near the end, where you are, turning down a page, writing on it with a pencil, doing all kinds of things, ripping something out, putting something in between a card from a restaurant and a page of the book. There's so many things you can do that are human. But no, we throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? The issues that we have when you just use the word progress, and it does this evil dance with technology. You are locked into a path. You're not locked into all paths. You're locked into a path. And there's a solution to any problem. There's several ways of solving problems. So there's the emphasis on technology. I mean, look at me. I'm not saying follow me because it's been a detriment in part of my life and has made the rest of my life wonderful. I can't type. Well, that's a shock. Of course you should be able to type. Everything is typing. Everybody knows how to type because you type in computers. Well, I've done perfectly well, and my books are more readable because they're dictated and you hear me talking.
Mm-hmm.
When you type, you have a different set of rules that go into the construction of your words, sentences, and grammar than when you speak.
Does that also mean that your books should be read out loud?
No, but when you read it, you hear it in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. You know that the Romans, I don't remember if it was Cicero or somebody who said, oh, that guy, I just don't believe him. He claims to have read 300 books. Because in Roman times, you would not read in your head, you would read out loud invariably, and that was the only way to read. And that would take a much longer time. But of course, it would also generate a different relationship with what you would understand of the text that you were reciting. Reading was reciting.
Okay, well, let's say we could, each of us type, I could type period, and you could type 100 times faster, and I could match you. And all we had on the screen was our words. As opposed to this, of seeing each other. And then let's suppose I was in your office or you were in mine, and we were just chatting, which would be better than this. But this is pretty good. Actually, this is pretty good. This is as good as it gets, but I'm still looking the wrong way. We're not looking at each other. And nobody's invented a computer that can nod. People laugh when I say that, but it's a perfectly obvious thing. Why did Steve do a computer that nodded? Because you're nodding, you can't stop from nodding when I talk about something. You'd be holding your face stiff.
A couple of years ago, maybe 3 now, I was double booked. I had to be in Rome and Berlin at the same time. I physically went to Rome, but I really wanted to be in Berlin too. You know what I did? I hired a mime and I put an iPad in front of his face, and I was there in a FaceTime call, full screen. So my entire face would cover the screen, and the mime studied a little bit the way I move and the way I gesture, and I delivered the talk at a conference through the mime, and the people loved it. They actually told me that I lost a lot of weight. I was very slim. I looked good. And that was a fantastic experience in doubling your presence, much better than the telepresence robots can do, the things on wheels. And oh, yeah, here you go. Our common friend, Michael Smollens, was in the audience in Berlin. And since I could see through the screen, I saw he was there, and I called him up on stage. I said, Michael, come on. You flew in from New York. Come on stage. Let's hug. And the mime was following, and he improvised. Michael came on stage, and we hugged through the body of the mime. It was just fantastic.
Well, that's good. In a certain way, well, it's very good, but it's also an act.
It is. It is, because I couldn't smell him. I couldn't feel the touch.
And this is really better than I thought. I didn't think it would be this good. We're managing to pause and talk to each other quite well. And the reason I made a point of saying I hadn't said that before, and I hadn't said this before, or I'm following what you're saying, is that Lou Kahn, who is my mentor, the architect who's no longer alive, for those people who don't know who Lou Kahn is, look him up.
Yeah, could you spell the name?
K-A-H-N. So I know you have a lot of Pakistani people, and it's not K-H-A-N, it's K-A-H-N. He did the capital of Bangladesh in Dhaka. That doesn't make him a friend necessarily of Pakistan, but when he did it, he was first hired by the head of Pakistan at that time, whose name was Khan,
Yeah.
the great general, the Khan,
Yeah.
and Khan, and then they split up, and now he did that. Anyway, he said he only said something new when he was talking to one other person. That when he was talking to two people, it was a performance. And there is an element of that. I don't know if it's scientifically true. It's mostly true. Anything that's mostly true is fine with me because it gets like calculus. You never come to an answer with calculus, but you get close to an answer. So that's close to an answer for me. So I said, in this conversation, I said a couple things, and I thought about a couple things I hadn't thought of quite the same way. So this conversation actually was helpful to me. It advanced me, and it would have been like you were in my office and we were having a conversation. And it gave me some, the things that the discussion about Go, my bringing up of chess, the ideas of progress, your ideas of the mind, the WWW conference, doing it again, not doing it again, typing, all those things together just won't normally come up if you write things on text on back and forth. They just don't. And yet that's the way we're going. We're going in the direction of people I've been invited to so many different conferences with many people on the screen, with Zoom, with this and that, with people talking, and you can't talk at the same time. You cut off each other, and you can't handle it. And it's the people somehow are attracted to do what they're able to do rather than what might be good to do.
And too few apply your rule of taking away things. One of the reasons why you may appreciate the platform we are using now is because it doesn't do a lot of things. But the simple things that it does are pretty effortless. And that is why the interface, not quiet, but is starting to disappear. And when it will, because, for example, we will be able to build the objective of the lens right inside, smack inside the screen, so that your eyes will be right where the lens is, and I will look your eyes and you will look my eyes. That is when we will feel even closer to each other.
Yeah. But that's good progress, and that's simple, and we know we have the ability to do that. Somebody who wants to do that will do that.
Elon Musk is working on telepathy. And of course, first it is applied to people who lost their ability to move their hands or their legs, because those are the ones that that want to go through at any cost the experiment of the brain implant. But after 10 years, it will be for everybody. Will you want to have telepathy? Or you would, not the magical, the technological means of merging your thoughts with another human being. Will that be something that you would embrace?
I'll take that whole conversation backwards, because it's a question of what I would like. And here's what I would really like. I would like to have interesting days.
Wonderful.
You see how different that answer is?
Yeah.
That if my days, if I get up, it doesn't have to be a happy day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have to feel well that day.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's interesting, I feel life.
Mm-hmm.
So this conversation has been an interesting conversation. So it's an interesting day. And what did it produce? Something in my head, something in your head. I don't know what's going on in your head, David. I've told you some of the things going on, but I don't really, they're all scrambled in my head. I'm really, in the end, a dumb shit that had a much more interesting life than I anticipated. But that's my goal. is to have a much more interesting life than I anticipated. It's not the wealth, and it's not the power.
And the way you say it is appropriately ambiguous, because you did say it is not about good or enjoyable, painless, and may you have may you live in interesting times. That is one, I don't know if Chinese say or something like that.
I curse you, I curse you, may you live in interesting times.
But it's fine. I accept it too. I mean, the pandemic, isn't it interesting? It's amazing.
We're in the curse right now.
But it is so, I mean, I'm not saying I would not want it to be like this, because I would want it not to be like this. But since it is,
we agree.
I am accepting it. I am embracing it. I am thriving in it.
We agree. And
Richard,
I wouldn't have started this new line of sculpture that I'm doing, and I wouldn't have had this conversation probably.
Yes, and I am very, very happy of your generosity of joining me and joining us. As I promised, I will send you not only the link to the video, but also the transcript, and hopefully you will be able to pluck out, or whoever you send it to will pluck out some stimulating and interesting nuggets.
But I want to say something to your viewers.
All right.
Those who have been listening for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, who are still listening now, or go back and listen to this, or watch it in a month from now. We didn't give you any nuggets. We didn't do anything for you. There's no tricks. There's nothing we told you of a new invention or a new app for a phone or some other new way of doing things. We didn't tell you how to make more money or how to gain more power or how to solve the fact that your toe hurts and you think you might have gout. We didn't do any of those things. It was sort of really about nothing. And yet it was about everything. Mm-hmm. It had in it everything. It had in it friendship, respect for other people, really, of the gestures that we made with our heads and our hands and our voices, of understanding and curiosity about each other, of not dominant and subservient, not power and lack of power, not stealing or plundering, or stupid things like, oh, you're looking good, or how's everything going? All that shit that we say to each other. There was not once that we said something dumb like that. Not once. You know, I was expecting, well, you don't look bad. You're 85 now. You're an old shit. No, I didn't get any of that. That is remarkable. That is friendship. And that is thoughtful, and that is respect. And that is a payoff for a very good conversation. So if you get anything out of this, have some good conversations the next few days.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. And I wish for us in the near future, and whether that means a few months or maybe next year, I don't know when, for me to be able to come and be at your place so that we can sit again, but one across the other and have another conversation.
I would love that. Nice talking to you, David. Give my best to you, son.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching Searching for the Question Live with the wonderful Richard Saul Wurman. I will see you at the next episode.